Well, actually, I just finished watching the news conference that President Trump has held at NATO and Netherlands. I think he's now on the way back to the U.S.
Yeah, I heard part of that on the car
Oh,
on
you
satellite
do?
radio. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. All right. So yeah, the first thing I'm gonna asking is about the NATO. All right. Okay, let's start. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Cheyenne's Forum. Today is June 25th. Welcome, my dear friend Tom.
Thank you.
So nice to see you, Tom. And Tom, my dear friend, and he worked in FBI for 30 years, and he worked as assistant director in FBI for almost 5 years, and he now is retired. Thank you again, Tom, to come to our podcast. Tom,
Thank you.
we had a huge weekend. But before that, I'm going to asking you something about the NATO. And President Trump just meeting at NATO, and I think he just finished his conference, which is very interesting one, and fly back to the U.S. And looks like now NATO is willing to increase the percentage of their military spending. So, my question is, in current international situation, how relevant is NATO to the United States? Are we really need to ally with NATO?
No, I don't think they're that relevant. I think President Trump doesn't think so, but he still thinks that, under the membership requirements in NATO, if
Mhm.
one country is attacked, the other countries agree to defend them and attack back and all of that.
Right.
And Trump was looking at that like the majority of the country, 30 some countries don't have militaries that are worth anything anymore,
Mhm.
armies, navies, air forces, and that, it all looks good. Oh, we'll all defend each other. But the reality is, it's the United States that's going to pay for it. The United States is going to supply all the military equipment or whatever it would take to defend a NATO country. And so I think that this started, of course, during the first administration of Trump. And I
Mhm.
think that, he's continuing now, like, wait a minute. And he's told them, and they were astonished, they were shocked and outraged when he said, you don't pay, we won't defend you. We
Mhm.
don't feel obligated to defend you if you're not a contributing, paying member of NATO. And
Mhm.
so then that starts a big flurry. They all agree to pay. Well, we'll see. We'll see if they actually pay or
Mhm.
if they just play games and figure, well, Trump can only be president, another 4 years
Right.
or 3.5 years at the most. So
Mhm.
we'll wait him out. We'll pretend like we're going to pay, or we'll pay a little bit and all that. So
Mhm.
let's see. We'll take a wait and see with NATO.
Sure. Yeah, good point. Good point. So as a just a common American citizen, do we really need NATO? We don't. They need us, but they don't want to pay. So this is really strange. How could they do that? They need us to defend them. Meanwhile, they don't want to pay. So
Right.
why they thought that they can have the free lunch forever?
Because every president up till now has been allowing it. So the US has let them do that. And then, we all, hold hands and pretend we're all defending each other and we're all in this together.
Mhm.
And I think that, Trump has called their bluff. You pay or we don't protect you.
Hmm. So some people just criticize Trump as a businessman. He's doing the American or the international fair like a business. And then what do you think about this narrative?
I think some truth in that. He's looking at, the efficiency of the business requires that everybody do their fair share, pay their fair amount.
Hmm.
And if they don't, it's not a good business.
Hmm.
And again, the United States, since the end of World War II,
Hmm.
has been looked upon by all of the other European members of, okay, US, you're the big government power in the world, and you have the richest military and all of that. So you defend us,
Hmm.
but we're not really in a position to defend you.
Right. So is that another possibility that people worry about is if American divorce to NATO, and some other superpower will get into Europe, like Russia, like China. Do you think it will happen? It might happen, or it's
I don't think so. I think, Russia has pretty much, in more than 20 years of running Russia,
Mhm,
Putin is probably the most Western friendly leader of Russia they've ever had.
mhm,
And so, the idea is now that we have people like Lindsey Graham saying that we should have regime change in Russia and all that is really stupid because none of the other leaders in Russia that might take Putin's place
mhm.
have anywhere near the background that he had. He was
Right.
KGB. He was head of the KGB in St. Petersburg, Russia. He had traveled.
Mhm,
He had when he became president, he tried to get Russia to be part of NATO. They
right.
rejected him.
Mhm,
So so a lot of the fear that he's going to invade. Putin never built up a military powerful enough to invade the rest of Europe. Although maybe now it might be easy with the European militaries being so diminished, but
mhm,
he's never indicated that at all. In fact, he indicated early in the Ukraine war he didn't want to even invade Ukraine. He only wanted to make sure that they would not join NATO so
mhm,
that he didn't have all of American and British and German weaponry on his border.
mhm,
And
mhm,
and so he regarded the Ukraine all these years as a partner, you know, culturally and religiously as a partner. And that was what he wanted.
mhm,
And but leaders in the West have been trying to go after him and have regime change in Russia and all of that.
mhm.
And it's really not going to happen.
Sure. So it is fair to say that most of the European politicians just refuse to recognize the reality that Putin is one of the leader of Russia that very close to the Western, or he wants to join the Western world.
Well, they don't want to recognize that he's a very pro-Western
Right.
leader, and they want to look at it like he's still Stalin or the old Cold War days
Mm,
with Russia, and Putin doesn't want that. And he's
right.
tried to extend business opportunities and all of this.
Mm,
And so far up till now, probably the only U.S. president that recognizes that we should be doing business with Russia is Trump.
mhm,
And so all of these other, people like Biden, well, we don't know, it's another story we could talk about is who was running the U.S. government the last 4 years, but still, theoretically, the U.S. has been looking down on Russia, wanting to have regime change with Russia. They put all these sanctions on Russia, and that boomerangs and only hurts the U.S.
mhm. So their mind are still stop at the Cold War period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So when talking about the 12-day war during the weekend, so how do you rate the 12-day war and the US strike on Iran's nuclear facilities? Do you think it's a great military movement?
Well, I think it certainly looks like it from the
Mhm.
outside, but the fact that, the bunker buster bombs go minimum 200 feet and explode and penetrate through rock and
Right,
granite and the earth, then they explode. Then the follow-up is to drop more bombs in the hole that they made,
right,
and then that makes the hole go deeper
right.
and spread out. And if there's facilities underground, destroy those facilities.
Mhm.
Now, Trump has been saying that we obliterated their nuclear
Mhm.
facility.
Yeah, right.
Well, who knows for sure?
Hmm.
It hasn't been inspected in person. Some
Hmm.
people to go down there and say, okay, is there anything? Are the centrifuges still functional? Is
Hmm.
the radioactive material still intact. It could still be used for enrichment to make bombs. And I think that, I would personally like to see Trump stop bragging about how great it was until we verify how great it was.
So how
And
long
so
you
so
think?
far, so far they're get what Trump has shown the pictures
Hmm.
saying that that bomb went down and here. the surface of the place, that mountain. On top, here's before picture, and all those buildings are fine. And
Right.
here's the after picture, and they're all blackened and
Right.
half knocked down. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's fine, but that's not where the enrichment is happening. It's 200 feet down. I'd
Mm-hmm.
like to see pictures of that, and we
Right.
haven't got that so far. So we'll see. I'm not calling Trump a liar. I
Mm-hmm.
think his intelligence people are telling him that it was a tremendous strike, and even the Iranians are saying it was a tremendous strike and really hurt their nuclear program,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which they don't have. Isn't that interesting? Oh, we
Right.
don't have a nuclear weapons program. Oh, bye, you really hurt our program. So I think that we'll see. Time will tell for sure. Now, the fact that the Ukraine immediately called for a ceasefire because they're saying, wait a minute, the U.S. has dropped all of those munitions and could do it again, could drop another
Mm-hmm.
equally large number of munitions. And
Right.
then you have Israel still with their jets bombing above ground,
Mm-hmm.
because the sky is dominated by the West, by Israel and the U.S.
Right.
And apparently, the biggest gain so far of this is that you, Iran's air defense system appears to be not functional.
Right.
So we have complete, control of the air.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's with our bombers flying over, Israel with their jets flying over, and our submarines launching Tomahawk missiles
Right.
400 miles away
Right.
into Iran. So,
Right.
so I
Right.
think all indications are that that's why Iran said, let's have a ceasefire. When
Right.
before they said they would never have a ceasefire. Now they want a ceasefire. So we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
Trump, when you look at Trump on the ceasefire, he's more worried about Israel than Iran, that Israel's going to break it and keep bombing Iran. That's why he told him in no uncertain terms, and he said it to the media, he's
Mm-hmm.
not happy with Netanyahu
Mm-hmm.
even continuing to threat, just
Right.
basically trying to tell him, shut up,
Mm-hmm.
be quiet.
And go
Iran
back.
says that Iran says we have a ceasefire. Let's
Right.
see. If we
Right.
don't, and Iran's lying, and they keep the last rockets that Iran launched into Israel was right before everybody agreed to the ceasefire.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, they haven't launched anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's a big deal that they haven't.
Mm-hmm.
And Trump's let them know, and they ought to believe him.
Mm-hmm.
You keep launching those rockets at Israel, we're coming back.
Right.
Or if
Right.
you keep your nuclear production and we find out you're still doing it, we're
Mm-hmm.
coming back.
Right. 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 Yeah.
And since you don't control the airspace, you can't stop us.
Right. Right.
Now, I think that for Iran, it's a pretty serious threat to them.
Mm-hmm. Right. So you mentioned one possibility that Iran asking for the ceasefire is because they are worried about the second wave of the strike.
Yeah, it's like,
Maybe not because their current one has been destroyed as we expected. Is that what you mean?
no, no, I mean that, yeah, they'll go back to trying to rebuild it. But if
Hmm.
they keep launching rockets into Israel, we'll go back and make sure they're finished. And we'll do more. We'll turn Israel loose, basically, to
Right.
go back to Iran,
Hmm.
attack their government, attack their airfields,
Hmm.
destroy their jets on the ground.
Right.
And
Right.
I think that that's the threat that we have overwhelming force that we could still use.
Right.
Don't provoke us. Don't
Right.
make us do it.
Exactly.
Now,
Exactly.
meantime, you have, you know, whether it's deep state or what, you have people within the U.S. government saying, oh, we didn't really hurt them. Oh, minimal damage. In 2 months, they'll be back operating and all that.
Right.
And that was leaked from the Defense Intelligence Agency.
Right.
And big investigation underway now to find out who leaked it.
Yeah, that's the following question that I plan to ask you is about, we heard that 17 people involved this the information leak. So the Secretary of Defense, Pete Heck, says that it could be immediately investigated and prosecuted. I have a question for you. Have you encountered such kind of cases in your career? And how are they usually handled, this kind of leaking information
Well, the
cases?
investigation, would include trying to find out which office of the DIA that came out of, who are
Mhm.
the likely suspects, try and get warrants to do electronic surveillance, wiretaps on them,
Mhm.
contacts in the media that might tell us or tell our investigators who did it, who leaked it. So I think that's what they're going to do is a standard leak investigation. And usually they don't
Mhm.
turn up anybody. Most of the leak investigations are very unsuccessful, but we'll see.
Why? How's that? Why isn't most of them?
Because they usually can't exactly figure out and get the evidence they need to prosecute somebody on the inside unless they brag about it or come out publicly and let everybody know they did it. Um, so that's the problem. These are difficult cases to make, but they're going to try to make them and go after it.
Okay, but right now, at least they know there are 17 people get involved. So
I
this
don't
is
know. I don't know how they know all of that or where
right.
or that.
Yeah, I just wonder how in a very short period of time they know 17 people get involved, or they already have the evidence. We don't know. We
We don't
probably
know.
need to wait.
Don't know.
Yeah, right. And then also think about the Iran and Israel, the east fire. Do you know, or do you predict how long it will take them to fight again?
That's hard to predict. I think that
They
you know,
will fight again, right? Or
probably,
they just keep peace
probably. I don't think
forever.
Iran is completely done or Israel. So we'll see. As long as,
Hmm.
the move is almost up to Iran now to
Hmm.
launch more missiles. It's estimated that Iran has more than 40,000 missiles, and that
Well,
the missiles that they've been launching into Israel are old, like they're cleaning out their closet, old missiles.
hmm.
They're not supersonic, they're not all of those things,
Hmm.
which if they launch supersonic missiles, which they have,
Hmm.
they can't be stopped.
Right. That's the thing.
The Golden Dome, whatever the air dome defense in Israel, can't stop those missiles.
Hmm. Hmm.
They fly at several thousand miles an hour
Hmm.
faster than the current missiles, which are just, a couple hundred miles an hour. So
Hmm.
they're almost 10 times faster. And by the time they can track the missile coming, it's too late.
Hmm. Right. Yeah.
So
So,
Iran still has that capability.
hmm.
Uh, so I think that Israel and the United States know pretty much what Iran could still do
Hmm. Hmm.
if they want to do it. Now, the next question that's come up is Iran has threatened to shut down the Straits of Hormuz.
Right.
And that's the waterway from Iran
Hmm.
to ship their oil out on tankers and then get out to the open sea.
Right.
And the problem for them in threatening to do that, or if they actually do it, is that China gets 95% of their oil from Iran from
Yeah.
the so the speculation is that if they in fact that they're bluffing, that if in fact they did that,
Hmm.
they could easily end up in toppling the Xi regime in China.
Hmm.
That China's in dire straits to need that oil to keep their economy going,
Hmm.
which is weak right now.
Hmm.
So that's the other dilemma for Iran is they can huff and puff and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And pretty much you wonder whether they're actually going to do it because it would hurt them. It would hurt one of their strongest allies in the world
Hmm.
is China.
Right, right. Yeah, Tom, you just mentioned the other kind of weapon that Israel cannot stop Iran if they attack them. So American knows that, Israel knows that. And this time American get involved is because we have to stop the enrichment of nuclear facility. And right now, if we announce that we finished the job, we accomplished our goal. So next time, if Iran attacked Israel using the other kind of weapon, a non-nuclear weapon, is there any reason or excuse that American can just do it again to attack Iran, or we don't have any other reason to get involved
Well,
the
we
world?
could do that, but then we're not going to have the same political leverage that we have.
Mhm.
Nobody wants nuclear weapons in Iran. Nobody
Right,
wants their
right.
crazy anti-Western, anti-Christian
Right.
mullahs to
Uh-huh.
have nukes.
Right.
But the fact that they have ordinary missiles,
Mm-hmm.
same as us and Israel,
Mm-hmm.
Russia, you name it,
Mm-hmm.
there's not going to be widespread support in the world for us to do that,
Right.
to go after that. Now, in the
Right.
meantime, if they do launch those, and if they launch hypersonic missiles at Israel, which can't be stopped,
Mm-hmm.
Israel is looking at if that was to happen, they could easily wipe out the city. They don't want to do Jerusalem because Jerusalem is Christian, Muslim,
Yeah, right.
you know, several religions are based in Jerusalem. But Haifa on the
Mm-hmm.
coastline and Tel Aviv are coastline cities that aren't headquarters for religions like Jerusalem is.
Mm-hmm.
So they could take out those cities. Haifa on the coast of Israel is one of its most industrial cities,
Right.
and they could do a lot of damage. If they took out Haifa, that would be very serious damage to Israel.
Mm-hmm. Right. So don't know if Israel prepare for that, if Iran have the other weapon. Well, so Iran's still in danger. I mean, Israel still in danger, even though we destroy the nuclear facility.
Right.
Doesn't mean that they're safe. They're still not,
That's
right?
correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And also, so I just very unexpected to hear that the investigation of the information leak will be very difficult. I
It'll be
think
very difficult, and almost every leak investigation I ever heard of was unsuccessful. So
really,
suddenly the fact that they think this time they're going to find this person and gather the evidence and prosecute, maybe, but maybe not.
this is pretty new to me because I think if they already know that 17 people, they pretty much have a lots of information already.
I don't think they know. I don't know how they know that or if they're speculating about that, but the idea of gathering enough evidence to fire and also bring legal proceedings, fire and prosecute a leaker is
Mhm,
going to be it's going to be a tall order to try to do that. Now, maybe the fact that they have the investigation going and,
mhm.
we'll go in and start polygraphing people in the DIA and all of that. We'll see.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah,
see where it goes. But
right, right. And then talk about this is something that DOJ and FBI will involve. So far, we're still waiting for some cases from FBI or DOJ to prosecute. And what do you think about their performance? It's 5 months already. So within the 5 months, do you think they are doing good job? Either DOJ or FBI?
hard to tell. I've been involved in hundreds of those kind of cases. They take a long time. And I
Okay.
think that the reason they take a long time is because of following the law, following due process, and all of that. When they
Hmm.
went after Trump, it didn't take very long because
Yeah.
they didn't follow all that. So what
Hmm.
they did against Trump, the lawfare against Trump and
Hmm.
Trump's allies, was improper, illegal,
Hmm.
unconstitutional.
Hmm.
And in the long run, that's why they lost.
Hmm.
But in the short run, they're able to, put Trump in a courtroom in a matter of months, where in real life, in following the rules of federal procedure,
Hmm.
criminal procedure, that doesn't happen that fast.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, right. Yeah,
Just to
talking
get,
about
just to get, when you subpoena documents, when you subpoena bank records, when
right.
you subpoena phone records, when
Hmm.
you get enough information to conduct a legitimate wiretap, it
Hmm.
takes months.
Hmm.
And if you need information from overseas, add another 6 months to subpoena records from another country and go through that process internationally and have
Hmm.
that information come back to the US.
Hmm. Hmm.
So the fact that it's only been 5 months, people want to see results, but if they want to see results that mean something, people get prosecuted and go to jail. It's going to take many months.
Right. Yeah, the other ca kind of cases that we're talking about, and FBI, I think is right now is investigating is there are so many people are involved to the riots in LA. And right now this is a new development that um Vice President Vance just talked to people in the situation in LA. And he said almost every single agent told him personally that every time they have the action to catch someone, illegal immigrants with a criminal record, in within 15 minutes, there are people, the some other people that covered their faces are showing up and block them to do their job every single time. That
Right.
means there are some people inside to tell these group of people to block the federal agent. So I'm wondering, this is a criminal, and this is happening now. Can we just catch this guy, arrest this guy, or they cannot be touched? What's going
No, they
on
can be
there?
touched. Nobody wants to touch them. You've got Gavin Newsom and the mayor, communist mayor of Los Angeles, trying to absolutely block federal law enforcement, prevent their own law enforcement from keeping the peace. And so that's the problem is that you have this grand conspiracy of Democratic politicians trying to keep the federal government from doing that. And I think that in the long run, they're not going to be able to do that. And that's where, having guys like Tom Homan running the investigations, they're really not going to do it. So, we just saw recently the arrest of a federal judge. They're all screaming, you can't arrest a judge. Yeah, you can. If they
Right.
break the law, yes, you can.
Yeah.
And so ICE, having their agents assaulted, their vehicles damaged, and criminal damage to that property. There's a lot of things that just were not being enforced and are now starting to be enforced. And then I think that the fact again, Trump, oh, he'll never send in the National Guard. He can't do that. Or Gavin Newsom saying it's illegal. The president, I control the National Guard in California, not the president. Well, no, not totally true. And I think, the Democrats need to keep learning those lessons the hard way.
Yeah, right. And the videos then you can see is there is an agent, ICE agent, which is federal agent. They want to do their job. And these are people standing between the agent and the guy the agent are gonna arrest. They just stand there. And the agent is not pushing them, not pushing this guy. They just try to go other way to catch that guy. So these people, I think these people, they're a criminal. But
They
why
are.
is agent that
That's a
just
crime to obstruct ICE or
right,
FBI or marshals or any other federal law
can't do
enforcement
that.
from
Right,
doing their job is a criminal offense.
right. But
Well,
seems like so far nobody arrest them.
there's some being arrested, but I don't know to what extent they're going to be prosecuted. They need to be prosecuted
Right.
federally.
Right. Is this felonal or misdemeanor? What kind
Well,
of
a federal felony to
okay,
obstruct those officers.
right, right, right. So this is just crazy. When you see something
Yeah,
happen,
so if they go ahead and arrest them and prosecute, many of them, they could get 10 years in prison.
right, but it seems like they just don't care or they don't know this. They are just yeah, criminal. And
Right.
also something happened in New York. These are happen in LA that at least we see the videos from LA area. And in New York, Democrat Party has selected the Muslim candidates as a mayor.
Yeah, you had Como concede and drop out,
Yeah,
and you've got this socialist, Muslim, communist, all of the above
right,
that's about to be elected mayor. And then on the Republican side, you have the Curtis Sliwa, the head of the Guardian Angels, who's run for office in New York many, many times. And I think the last Republican to get elected might have been Giuliani.
Mm-hmm.
maybe Bloomberg. I don't know what his politics at that time was,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, the Democratic Party is in severe trouble, except the one thing they have going for them is morons that vote for them. That's what they have.
Mm-hmm.
That's their most valuable asset are the idiots that put them in office and then keep doing that. And that's the same story in Chicago, same story in Los Angeles.
Right.
Um, that's how these people get elected and they're put in office. And the people have to wise up and say, we can't have this. We have to stop this.
So do you think he will be the mayor of New York or
Yeah, I think
what?
so. I think so.
Yeah. This guy is 33 years old and he has been a US citizen only 7 years ago. So I have no words. If people of New York vote a Muslim and socialism, communism as their mayor. So what do you think of the chance of the Eric Adams, right?
Yeah, he's running as an independent now. So he's
Independent.
dropped out of the Democratic Party because he criticized Biden and Biden went after him. And, and trying to use really, like Trump, use feeble charges to go after him. But I
Mhm.
think, what's going to happen now? I don't know. I don't know if the people in New York, if they look at ICE as oppressors and Nazis and all of that, and this guy's going to save them. I don't know. They're probably that stupid, but we'll see where this plays out.
Yeah, I remember you've been working in New York for a long time, right?
No, no, I was never assigned in the New York office, but I ran, the national programs. I was in charge of the organized crime program for 5 years, and the bulk of the program was in New York City, Chicago, Boston, Philadelphia.
Okay.
And so I had a lot of trips to New York. I worked closely with the New York management staff.
Right.
Prior to 9/11, organized crime was the number one priority program of New York City, New
Hmm.
York FBI. After
Hmm.
9/11, it became number two.
Right.
And terrorism, counterterrorism became the number one program. And but over the years, the FBI, with our investigations using the RICO statute and the tremendous prosecutions out of the Department of Justice assisting us, we pretty much dramatically reduced. We didn't completely wipe out the La Cosa Nostra, the American mafia, but
Hmm.
dramatically reduced their power, took them out of the four largest labor unions, which they controlled,
Hmm.
uh, took them out of other industries that they controlled. So,
Hmm.
that was guys like John Gotti that were supposed to be invincible. He
Hmm.
gets sentenced to pretty much life in prison and then dies of throat cancer while he's in jail.
Hmm.
But yeah, the work that the FBI did, and not just because I ran the program in some of the very most successful time of it,
Hmm.
but people that were running it right before me and
Hmm.
then after me, I ran it for 5 years and it was tremendously successful, really successful,
Hmm.
using the RICO statute, using the enterprise theory of investigation, which we pretty much invented, how
Hmm.
to go after organized crime groups.
Right.
The bosses sent the orders down, and the soldiers on the street or the captains, they call capos,
Hmm.
did all this kind of crime. Well, the FBI penetrated that. And because the RICO statute had such lengthy prison sentences
Hmm.
that these guys started trying to make a deal. If they were going to be prosecuted by the FBI and Department of Justice, they were scurrying to make deals
Hmm.
to testify against the other people in the organization. So that all was going on pretty much 70s, 80s, 90s,
Hmm.
and just in time to really, really dramatically reduce the mafia in America, and
Right.
then to enable other terrorist organizations, other groups to rise up.
Right. So it seems to me, I came here about 30 years ago, and it seems to me that Democrats is out of control right now. So in your career or in your lifetime and as American citizen, have you ever seen that the Democrats or the Republic is like out of control like this degree?
No, we investigated both sides and took them all out. So if somebody extremely criminal operations on the Democrat side or on the Republican side,
Mhm,
we investigated them. We arrested the people. Most
mhm,
of them, using the RICO statute, were getting life without parole. In
mhm,
the old sentencing guidelines for regular crimes, extortion or loan shark, some of those things, the person might get sentenced to 15 or 20 years, but be eligible for parole at about 5 and get
mhm.
out. But
Right.
under the RICO statute, most of those serious laws, it was life without parole. So there
Mm,
was no early release for good behavior. If you got sentenced to 30 years, you got 30 years.
mhm, mhm,
Life, if you got sentenced to, and then even getting sick, like Gotti got throat cancer
mhm.
while he was sentenced to basically life in prison.
Right.
Then they put him in a federal prison hospital. Springfield, Missouri, I think, is where that hospital is. So the
Mhm.
doctors could treat him. He can get the surgeries. He can get all that and still
Mhm.
be in custody, still be in jail.
Oh,
So
okay.
not get released into civilian hospitals outside of the prison system,
Mhm,
but they went within the prison system, the hospitals that were there, the doctors that were there.
mhm.
So
Because
when they got sentenced, and I think later on, when members of the mafia caught on that if we get sentenced to life without parole, we're going to die in jail.
mhm.
And, when that finally dawned on them that that was going to happen, then they started cooperating earlier.
So maybe
So we
no.
used to joke, we used to joke at the time that, like in New York, you had 5 families of the mafia in New York. And
Mhm.
we used to joke that when we were getting close to prosecuting one, we were going to install, the little machines in the lobby of the New York office where you pull the tab and you're the next customer, like a butcher shop or a grocery store. So we
Uh-huh.
were going to install those and say, you better come in and get a number pretty quick and cooperate, or you're going to go to prison for 40 years.
Wow. But nobody predict. I believe that the Democrats re turn on as a mafia. And right now what they are doing, their behave is just like mafia.
Yeah, it is very
Yeah.
much.
So this is very new to American history. I don't think in their similar situation has appeared before in our history. So what can we do? What can we deal with that? It's a big question.
Well, what we do is what we did in the 80s and 90s,
Hmm.
when I was there, when I was a senior executive, is do these cases honestly, fairly, diligently,
Hmm.
and prosecute. And have great prosecutors from the Department of Justice
Hmm.
run the trials and get these people sentenced. And when the leaders get sentenced and all of that starts happening, then others, it really, really diminishes their power. And so the mafia in New York is like a ghost organization compared to what it used to be.
Hmm.
And they control the largest unions,
Hmm.
Teamsters Union, the longshoremen, hotel workers. The
Hmm.
4 largest unions in the United States were corrupt by the mafia. So we
Hmm.
got them out using RICO, got them removed.
Hmm.
Where the point was that a union official couldn't even stay in the union. They were
Hmm.
banished from the union for life. So all of these very aggressive, very successful operations that took place over a period of mainly 70s, 80s, 90s,
Hmm.
that can all be done. It could be done against the Democrat. If the FBI became honest, top to bottom
Hmm.
and sideways, if they had the best investigators on these cases and backed them up with the best prosecutors at the Department of Justice backing them up, then you'd see an end to this.
Hmm.
Now, the way the Democrats are going, it might be the end of their party if they turn the RICO statute on the Democratic Party as
Hmm.
an unlawful organization.
Right.
But that's what needs to be done. They need to really, really get aggressive and do it.
Hmm. Hmm. And these kind of cases, just like you mentioned before, take times. take a long time if you
It
want
take
to.
time.
Yeah.
And it takes time and it takes political backing. So you don't have people on holding hearings on Capitol Hill saying, how come you haven't brought it? Why is this taking so long? What are you doing over there? You
Hmm.
know, make sure they're doing the right cases and really doing their best to solve them, to bring people to justice the
Hmm.
proper way with due process. Gather the evidence properly, not
Hmm.
the sham like what they did against Trump, which is why Trump won. You remember when we were talking about that early on? I said
Hmm.
Trump's going to win.
Hmm.
Cut
Right.
corners. They didn't. I said at the time they brought the trials too soon
Mm.
against Trump. That
Hmm.
gave him time to win before the election.
Right. Yeah, I
And
remember that. Yeah, I remember that. And you said it's bad timing, bad timing. They're thinking they're smart, but they're not.
no, they
They're
weren't.
in the cases.
No.
They're helping Trump actually in some ways.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
They did.
And yeah, also about the big beautiful bill. And this Friday it's gonna go to the Senate. So what do you think about that? Some Democrats, of course, try to block the bill. Do you think they can block the bill?
I don't think so, but it'll be interesting because, the two houses are so close in membership, the House
Right.
of Representatives and the U.S. Senate.
Mhm.
So I don't think so, but again, we'll see.
Yeah, because I saw the news that one of the lady I thought her last name is McConnell or I forgot her last name, but however, she's trying to turn up the policy. Right now, the policy is a 50, the majority, and right now she wants to turn the policy to 60 plus. So I don't know if she can do that.
Well, it's at 60 for certain types of bills, like the financial bills, things like that. So other financial bills. We'll see. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah. So why you are kind of confident that the bill will pass?
I think because it'll pass as long as Trump appears strong politically. So even now, with all the bad mouthing of the Iran bombing that the Democrats are doing, I
Right.
just saw a CNN poll that says 76% of Americans support Trump doing that.
Wow,
So I
see,
think that as long as he has that kind of political support
right.
from having done these type of attacks and policies and defensive maneuvers and all that, I think as long as he has that, um, the Democrats will back off and that bill will pass.
Well. Well, thank you.
I think. I think.
Great. Great.
Well, you can let me know next week if that didn't happen,
Yeah, well,
that I'm an idiot for thinking it.
you're not. You give me confident because I'm kind of worried about that. Just like you said, we're too close at the house, too close.
That's
So,
why I was glad, one of the things. Remember in the beginning of the administration where Trump was going to have Elise Stefanik from New York
right,
be what, ambassador to the UN or something like that. And I
right,
said, what a mistake.
right,
The House of Representatives is so close, you can't afford to lose any single one of them.
right.
And
Exactly.
thankfully, she withdrew from that, went back
Uh-huh.
to the House,
Right.
and it's made a big difference.
We need her. We need every single one
Now she might run for governor
in New York.
against Hochul in New York,
Yeah.
but for the meantime, we need her in the House. We need every House vote we can get.
Yeah, right. That's right. Wow, this is big. And Friday is big. Yeah, so we all expect regarding the big win at 12-day war. So this is big. So
Yeah,
Trump can keep his focus on domestic issues.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Well,
he's mentioned he wants to turn more to domestic issues.
right.
But maybe with this Iran thing, we'll see. Trump's looking at it like, all right, we took care of those guys. Now I can come
Right.
back to the U.S. and concentrate on them. Or first concentrate on NATO, straighten them out, and make them all pay their bills.
Right.
Then come back to the U.S. and worry about our domestic policy.
Right. It's funny that he just yelled at Netanyahu, said, "Go back, turn around, go
I
back."
think
And
he got fed up with them because he was in the middle of negotiating with Iran
right,
when
right,
Israel started the first airstrikes a month or so ago.
right.
And, I think Trump felt like the art of the deal. He'd be able to get Iran to, be sensible and all that. And then Netanyahu bombs them.
Hmm.
Then they bomb back, and that's the end of that.
Right.
So,
I understand why he's so pissed off. If I were him, I will.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right. And then, yeah, I just saw the conference. I don't know if you know that. If you saw that part, it's very interesting. The reporter from Australia asked a question that he said the NATO, the chairman of the NATO just called Trump dad. He said, "Are you treat NATO as your kids that they have to listen to you?" So this is a very funny moment at the conference. But Trump said, no, no, he just liked me so much. So just like, yeah, you're my dad, something like that. So yeah, but this is a very interesting question. Do you think that right now NATO, because of the 12-day war ending perfectly, so do you think NATO right now treat Trump or treat American as their not dad, but big, big brother and someone they can rely on?
I think so. I think that especially, in other words, the agreement in NATO for the promise for every country is to defend every other country if they get attacked.
Mhm.
Now, NATO and the Europeans have been saying Russia's going to conquer Ukraine and go all the way, take Poland, take
That's it.
France, conquer everybody. And Putin has always said, no, he doesn't want any part of that. He
Right.
wants to stabilize the continent so they all do business.
Mm-hmm.
And, he has a very much of a Trump philosophy in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of people look like at Russia like it's still Stalin here, the old days, how
Mm-hmm.
many people they murdered and how evil it was and all of that. And here you've got Putin has pretty much restored Russia to be an Orthodox Christian country,
Mm-hmm.
churches, all of that, much like here in the
Mm-hmm.
US. And a lot of people don't want to give him credit. They want to undermine his government and take it over and all of that. And the people below him, I'm sure there are a lot of people in Putin's administration that are saying, don't be so weak, don't be so nice, conquer Ukraine, conquer them, so what? And so if he's not in power, that might happen. So Putin is the one guy we can really do business with.
Mm-hmm.
Remember 20 years ago he wanted to join NATO and they
Right.
said no. So,
It's NATO refused him.
well, Putin also, being head of the KGB in St. Petersburg, which
Mm-hmm.
is a very
Western.
cosmopolitan city, let's say. So
Mm-hmm.
he has traveled in the West. He's
Mm-hmm.
very pro-West,
Mm-hmm.
very pro with the Western leaders. And so for a lot of reasons, he's like the best guy we could have running
Mm-hmm.
Russia.
Exactly.
Stop trying to screw him over. Stop trying to do all that sanctions and everything else that only made him richer.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I
So
think that
you
we'll
go ahead.
see.
Yeah.
We'll see if business breaks out between the U.S. and Russia
Mm-hmm.
and put an end to some of this nonsense.
Yeah. So actually, from this point of view, that the behavior of European is like the kids. They're not mature enough to see the reality.
Oh, sure. And you look at, you take Germany, which was the strongest economy in Europe for years, and
Mm-hmm.
that they would bail out poor countries like Greece and try to, give them welfare to keep them going. And, they didn't, Germany decides, oh, they get caught up like you would think Ocasio-Cortez was running Germany. A couple of years back, they start saying, well, we don't need coal-fired electric plants. We're going to do wind. We're going to use, other means,
Mm-hmm.
solar panels and that. And it's pretty much almost destroyed their economy
Right.
because Germany doesn't have enough wind. And Germany is cloudy. In Northern Europe, it's very
Right.
cloudy for very much of the year. And
Exactly.
those solar panel farms and wind farms don't make enough electricity. and they have the highest cost of electricity anywhere. And so now, have they learned their lesson to try to put back the coal, go back to what worked? I don't know.
Not
We just
smart.
end up with one liberal after another trying to run the country, and they've pretty much made Germany one of the weakest countries of any big country in Europe.
Yep. Yep. That's so sad. That's so sad to see. And the Vice President J.D. Vance actually mentioned a new concept called Trump philosophy. So they have three parts of the Trump philosophy. First, he's talking about deal with the international affair. First is set up the boundary. Second, negotiate. Third, if negotiate not work, use the military. Precisely. So he said, this is a new philosophy for us to deal with the international affair, and it looks worked very well, especially for the end of the 12th day war between Israel and Iran. What do you think about that?
Well, I think Germany, they've already reduced their military so far that that all sounds good if you have strong militaries, strong defenses, strong air defenses, all of that. And they don't. And so they've allowed all of their defenses to basically be diminished.
Which is not smart at all.
Yeah. And so the other side of that is then pay 5% and at least, make sure NATO financially is strong that way. And then you bring the US in, the big brother.
Yeah. So the what was Merkel, right? What's her name? The previous leader of German.
Oh, yeah,
The
I
lady
forgot.
one? Yeah, yeah. She is like a
Yeah,
communist party member. So communist or socialism destroy everything they touched.
true.
That's proof. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. It's so pleasure talking with you.
Well, thank you. And I
Yeah.
enjoyed talking with you also.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And the next Tuesday, we'll know the big, beautiful bill, the destiny of that big one. So
Yep.
we'll,
And also, we'll know more, hopefully, of how much damage was really done to Iran's nuclear program.
right,
So,
which is
uh,
really
those
important.
are two important issues to find out about.
Right. All right. Well, thank you again, Tom. I'll see you next week then.
Thank you, Cheyenne. See you then.
Thank you.